disappeared from Tennessee overnight.
Hi, this is David Fernandez from High Plateau Productions, and you are listening to Beyond the Plateau, a High Plateau Productions podcast. And today we have a wonderful interview with one of my favorite people from the UK. We have Abigail Hannah on our podcast today. Everyone cheer for Hannah. Abigail Hannah, woo! Abigail, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So you and I have come a long way since the first time we met each other. I've thought about it all morning, well, all evening on your time, of how your music ended up coming my way. But one, I feel like I'm blessed and privileged and all those wonderful words that we can say that somehow High Plateau Productions found you or you found High Plateau Productions. So we originally streamed you on December 12th, right?
Yeah, last year.
And I remember kind of like vividly when you and I were doing sound checks and everything, you're a bit nervous, a bit like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, and frustrated because my Wi-Fi wasn't working.
And so now, now we're almost January, February, 2.5 months into our relationship. And let's see, you've put out one single called
I Dare You. Yeah.
And we are going to shamelessly plug this throughout this podcast. You have a new single coming out when?
The 12th of March.
The 12th of March.
Yeah.
And, we try to be very unbiased here at High Plateau Productions, especially with the artists that we are personally working with and everything. But as I've told you, and I think the listeners, your Instagram followers, who've gotten a little bit of snippet of Memphis The Malibu, but Memphis The Malibu is a banger, like a banger. Our producer here in San Diego, Chris Hoffey, has done just an amazing job with it.
Yeah.
100%. So let's go ahead and just, we'll chat a little bit about the first single that you put out since we have been managing you, I Dare You. So why don't you tell your listeners about that?
Well, I Dare You is maybe the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me ever. It's basically just a song about me, and it's got nearly 10,000 views. No, not views. What's it called? Streams on Spotify now. So the fact that it's a song written by me about me and 10,000 people, or 5,000 people who streamed it however many times, is just, well, it blows my mind. So yeah, I'm still excited about that.
Can you remember where you wrote it, or what kind of like mind? These are the things that are just always so interesting when we have musicians on with us, or or if I'm just out in public talking with other musicians, is that just getting those little tidbits that back in the day, we would put out CDs and everything. There'd be something called linear notes, in that CD package where people would thank people, or they may talk about some of their music and everything. And with so many musicians, with TikTok, Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, we don't really sometimes get into the head of the indie artists of what was their frame of mind, where were they at, is this a song that was written when you were 13 and it's just taken that many years for it to flourish into what it is. So walk us through that.
Well, actually I wrote it about not even a year ago, maybe like 10-11 months ago, so it's actually quite a new one. And basically what happened is that I was talking to a boy, and you know how nowadays when you talk to people, it all happens online. It's all over Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook, and I hate that. Absolutely hate it. So one day I was at work, and I was working in a supermarket, and I was on my lunch break, and I'd spent the whole morning just thinking, this is ridiculous. Like, nothing's ever going to happen because all we do is text, and it's awful. And I got on my lunch break, and I just phoned him. Actually, I FaceTimed him out of the blue, and he picked up and he was like, why are you just FaceTiming me? That's like so random. What are you doing? And I was like, look, I just wanted to talk to you because we actually haven't had a proper conversation and we've been talking for weeks now. So I just want to talk to you. And he was like, well, by this point, he basically had picked up that I was a bit crazy. And this kind of confirmed that. And he was just basically telling me how he thought I was crazy. And quite often, boys and men will do that. They'll say to you, oh, you're crazy, because that's kind of the stereotype that girls are crazy. But you know what? I was like, I'm going to own it. Like, I think it's great that I'm crazy, and I like that about me. So, you know, either accept me as I am or don't at all. And then I finished my lunch break and I went back on shift and I wrote, well, I can't say I wrote it because I just thought it up in my head, but basically the whole of I Dare You came to me while I was like scanning carrots that afternoon. And I just kept it in my head. And then as soon as I got off my shift, quickly wrote it all down and went home and got my guitar, and that was that. So yeah, that's what happened.
That's awesome.
That's a really long explanation.
No. Those explanations are just, obviously awesome. Now, is does that boy follow you on Instagram?
No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. So he has no clue whatsoever, or does he have any clue?
He doesn't have a clue. No.
That's even better. That's even better. So, we've worked, of getting I Dare You out, and we're super proud of it, of the traction that it's received. Moving to Memphis to Malibu, which comes out on March 12th on all streaming platforms. There's a pretty safe link on your Instagram account. There's a pretty safe link on High Plateau's Instagram account too. Your songwriting, the themes, the things that go into your music, there's that empowerment sort of, first person or third person point of view. And Memphis to Malibu kind of hits on those themes as well. Why don't you talk to our audience a little bit about how Memphis to Malibu came about, and ultimately, what is it about?
Well, it's a work of fiction, because I've never been to Memphis or Malibu or anywhere south of Washington, D.C. in the US. So it's completely a work of my imagination. But I wrote it, actually, this was the first song I ever wrote the music to before I wrote the lyrics. Usually I write down the lyrics and then, maybe the tune came with the lyrics, or I'll add the tune later. But this was the first song I've ever written that the melody came to me first. And to be honest, I have no idea where the inspiration came from. I think I was just bored in lockdown. I wanted to travel, and the idea of, in the UK at the time, we could travel in the UK, but from driving to like one side of the UK to the other, not much changes. Whereas if you drove, from one part of the US to another, you're in a completely different climate and everything. And that to me just sounded like an amazing idea. So I just really wanted, I don't know, it sounded like a really cool idea to drive from Memphis to Malibu. And I wish I had a cooler explanation for the inspiration behind that song, but that's basically it.
I've been to the UK several times, and I would agree with you. And that drive from Memphis to Malibu is that you'll get through forest, you'll get through farmland, straight farmlands, as far as the eye can see. And then you'll get to the Rocky Mountains of these majestic peaks, and then you'll drop down into our hottest places, a couple of the hottest places in the world, through Death Valley and the California deserts and the Arizona deserts. And then ultimately, once you get to California, everyone has this perception that California is all beaches and palm trees, and to be really honest with you, California is really, really mountainous. And once you climb over those mountains and then drop back down into the valleys and get into our coastline, so totally get that. And very inspiring. And because lockdown has been extremely hectic on all of us. How is the perception in your household, with your parents and with your family, with your music?
You know what? They are absolutely 100% on board and involved. They are loving it. I feel like I've been writing songs since I was about 8 or 9, and they have very, very, very rarely got to hear them. I think they heard some of the first songs I ever wrote, and there was one song they heard that I did in a like a school music competition, but other than that, it was very much on the down low. I wouldn't let them hear it. So they're loving the fact that they're now hearing everything that I've written, because they've always kept asking me and I've always said no. So
Now, I fortunately, I think, besides you, I tend to hear some of your music first before anybody else. And then,
yeah.
and then does it go to a special friend, or do you highlight it for your family? Those things are always super kind of cool too. Is that, do you have, not, maybe a muse is not the right word for that, but is there a go-to person where you're like, can I bounce this idea off you, or can you listen to this hook, or can you listen to this lyric? Am I crazy, or does this sound good? How does that work?
They heard some of the first songs I ever wrote, and there was one song they heard that I did in a like a school music competition, but other than that, it was very much on the down low. I wouldn't let them hear it. So they're loving the fact that they're now hearing everything that I've written, because they've always kept asking me and I've always said no. So
Now, I fortunately, I think, besides you, I tend to hear some of your music first before anybody else. And then, and then does it go to a special friend, or do you highlight it for your family? Those things are always super kind of cool too. Is that, do you have, not, maybe a muse is not the right word for that, but is there a go-to person where you're like, can I bounce this idea off you, or can you listen to this hook, or can you listen to this lyric? Am I crazy, or does this sound good? How does that work?
yeah, I send everything over to my friend Olivia, bless her heart, because, well, actually, I'm kind of a sharing person, so I'll send, well, the finished stuff that we have, I'll send to a couple of people, but the initial ideas where I'm like, is this working or not, I send to my friend Olivia, and she is an absolute angel. She will dedicate time to sit down and listen to it, and sometimes she'll send me a whole voice note saying exactly what she thinks, and whether she likes it or whether she doesn't like it. In fact, she wasn't a huge fan of Memphis to Malibu to begin with, I'll be honest, but she warmed to it. She did warm to it. But yeah, so she's the person I bounce everything off.
That's cool. That's really, really cool. So, we have I Dare You Out. So actually your first single was Daisies, that you and I had absolutely, we hadn't even met yet when that was, but I do remember during your live stream with us on December 12th, you did play I Dare You.
I did, yeah.
And it's kind of, that's funny, that full circle sort of thing where, after December, I think, you and I reached out to each other in January and started talking, bouncing around ideas of like, let's do this. Let's really work at the music career and go at it. Daisies, when was that released?
November 13th.
November 13th. And was that song, did that mean something to you? Why did you choose Daisies to be one of the, well, to be actually the first single that you released under Abigail Hannah?
I don't know. See, I'd really gotten into the whole music production side of things during the first 5 or 6 months of lockdown. That was when I first started, like, actually, well, that's kind of a lie. I've been recording my songs forever, but this was the first time I actually invested some money into it and really got things going. And I was just so impressed with the way that Daisies came out. I mean, I'm sure music producers will listen to it and think it's rubbish, but I personally was impressed with the way that it came out, and I was just so proud of it. I wanted everyone to hear it. So the choice of that being the first one was mainly down to the fact that I was excited about the way I've recorded it. But I also just think it has a really poignant message, because I wrote it about the pandemic, which I know sounds depressing, But the whole idea of the song is that when everything seems just awful and down, like actually you can find like beautiful things in that. And the whole metaphor of the song is that everything you knew, well, in the song, everything that exists gets demolished by a fire, but then daisies grow from the ruins. And like, I just think that's a beautiful metaphor for really what's happened this year. We've lost so much, but we've also found so much, I think. So I think at the time in November, it was also a really important message that I think people wanted to hear. So yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. And I want to hit on a couple things of what you said. And I think, your listeners, your Instagram followers, or I was tickled pink, and you and I actually talked about this, and I really hope she listens to this podcast. But there was a young girl that did a cover of, which I think as a musician, I think is just kind of the most awesome thing, and then also at the same time kind of a weird thing, and then like I can't believe someone is actually covering my music. And whether they're 14, 38, or 65, those things are cool. And one of the things that I want your listeners to get kind of a take from you is that you and I are about 5,473 miles away from each other. You are in Kent, UK, which is kind of I guess maybe closer on the eastern coast, eastern part of the UK, and I'm in Southern California. But you and I, through GarageBand and then now through ProLogic, is that we swap tracks with each other, and then those tracks go over to Chris down in San Diego, which is about another 65 miles from me, and then everything gets mixed. So I think one of the great partnerships between High Plateau Productions and you is just that, I guess that trust and everything of, don't be afraid as a musician of like, I'm in lockdown and, I can't get a song produced or song get mixed, is that everything technology wise is out there to be able to swap tracks, get feedback, Zoom calls and everything. So talk about that process, because that is not the norm. The norm is typically booking studio time and then having someone tweak it right then and there. And walk us through that process.
Well, it's been kind of strange because I do the first part on GarageBand or Logic Pro, and then I don't know, it's kind of mad how what I create then turns into something beautiful once Chris has finished with it. I just think that's so mad, and especially since he's what did you say, 5,000 miles away?
Yes.
There's something I've written and created in my bedroom in the south of England, then goes off to San Diego and becomes something beautiful. That blows my mind, I have to admit.
Well, you do have to give yourself some credit and everything. Is yes, there are some mixing and some production that goes into the song and everything, but it's more of you crafting your trade on a daily basis. And you and I talk about this of, not being afraid to dive into GarageBand or dive into ProLogic and, understanding the other little nuances and, YouTubing things and trying to figure out what this button does and everything. And I think as younger musicians out there who are trying to dabble in this and everything, is I think you're an inspiration on those sort of things. Is like, I'm doing this in my bedroom. I don't have a vocal booth. I don't have fancy soundproofing and everything. You might hear my twin brothers shout in the background on a couple takes and everything. And I think that this day of age of I think it's very helpful for an independent artist to be able to lay the groundwork for those tracks and everything, and then move out. And obviously it is a bit of a cheaper way to do it too, is that you're not booking actual studio time with someone, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I also think it's cool how I can get it sounding exactly how I want it to sound. Like, I don't have to explain to someone by telling them what I want. I can make it on GarageBand or ProLogic and be like, this is what I want, just make it better.
And I think for our younger musicians out there, when we have our Zoom calls with Chris and everything, and Chris is very, very, stringent on that. It's like, it's your voice. I want to hear your voice. Don't let anybody try to auto-tune you or make your voice into something that it isn't, because your voice is your voice and your voice is your song. And I think that constantly, as Chris and I continue to talk over a lot of different issues, is that obviously resonates with me. It's like, it's your voice, it's your song, do it the way that you want it, and don't have someone, tweak everything. As a music goer, and I think you as a music goer, concert goer before COVID, I think that's always been one of those, really, you go see someone live and they don't sound anything remotely like of what they are on their songs and everything, because of just the overproduction and everything. And, I think your voice and your production, speaks volumes.
Oh, thank you, David.
Oh, you're welcome. And once again, I'm not trying to be, I am the most unbiased person in the world. So let's talk a little bit about where people can find your music. What is your Instagram handle?
At Abigail Hannah Songs.
And you're just at Abigail Hannah on Spotify?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Cool. And then let's tell everybody once again about Memphis and Malibu, when it drops and how they can find it.
So it drops on the 12th of March and it will be out on all streaming platforms. And you can pre-save it now via the link in my bio. So yeah, you'll be able to find it everywhere.
And then what does, so we are almost done with first quarter of 2021. What can we expect from Abigail in quarter 2, quarter 3? And let's talk about quarter 4 of 2021.
Hopefully lots of exciting things. We're working on a EP, aren't we?
We are.
Exciting. And then hopefully some live gigs at some point.
You do have you do have an online festival that you were invited to play in shortly. You want to talk about that? Let's go ahead and plug that really quick.
Yeah. So I'm doing the online country music festival with Barking About Music. We're not quite sure 100% what the details are yet, are we? But
we think it's mid-March, around mid-March, I think around the same time that Memphis and Malibu drops.
Yes, exactly. And when we do have all the details of how to buy tickets and view it, it will all be up on my Instagram. So yeah, the information will be there, but I'm excited about that as well.
And awesome. So I want to tell just a really funny story really quick. And Abigail, always when you have, management and artist relationships and everything, we always try to keep things funny and everything. And there's a funny story behind, you recently posted a very quick 15-second clip of Memphis to Malibu on your Instagram. And if you haven't heard it, you should head over to it, because it literally is 15 seconds of, of one of my favorite parts of the song and everything. But Abigail and I were discussing of, promotion and everything and what we can do and everything. And I had this bird brain idea of what is the lyric? Go ahead and tell the folks the lyric.
She's gonna dip her toes in the ebb and flows in the deepest blue.
So I had the idea and I ran it by Abigail of like, if we could get, you to, kind of go to the ocean and dip your toes. And then we discussed it's February in the UK and hypothermia might set in and we don't want to do that. So I went down to Southern California and randomly asked girls if I can tape their legs as they ran into the ocean, which is, one of those odd, weird things that, managers do for their artists and everything. So funny tidbit and everything. And we'll give you a little bit more story about that.
Yeah, but you found someone who would do it.
But we did find somebody.
Out of 10, how creepy is this?
So, yeah. So as I'm, talking with my family about it and talking to Abigail, and I'm like, Abigail, on a scale of 1 to 10, how creepy would it be for me to randomly ask a girl on a Southern California beach, hey, can I videotape your toes dipping them into the Pacific Ocean? And I think your comment was 55 or 56 out of out of 10. It was like, yeah, it was like, no.
Yeah, it was like a high level of creepy, yeah. But you know what? You managed it, so.
We got it done. We got it done. So this is a part of our podcast that, you know, we just kind of talk about some random things and everything. So I think one of the things that we always hear about between UK food and American food, and I know you've been to Washington, D.C. before in the U.S., but when you get here to the United States, is there any like candy or fast food that intrigues you that you're like, we can't get this here in the UK and I want to really go at it?
That's a really good question. You know what? I'm not even sure. I think, well, what immediately came to mind when you said that was when I was in Boston actually. We went to a Ben and Jerry's like ice cream parlor.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, we must have one in London maybe, but I'd never been to one before. Literally just so many Ben and Jerry's ice cream flavors, and they had like 10 vegan ones. What's that about? Like, that blew my mind. That really, because in the UK you can get like a little tub of Ben and Jerry's and it costs about £5 and it's just a right rip off. But the fact that I had all of those flavors of Ben and Jerry's right in front of me, and I love Ben and Jerry's, like I don't think there's anything I like more than Ben and Jerry's. And you could have like a scoop of one flavor, a scoop of another flavor. That blew my mind. That was one of the best days ever. So I wish we had Ben and Jerry's ice cream parlors in the UK, or if we do have them, then more of them. Other than that, you know what? I'm not really sure. I think a lot of things that you had that we wanted have now come over here. I think a lot of like the fast food chains and things.
What about cities in the US? Where are some of the places that you would like to gig at?
Nashville. I want to go to Nashville so bad. To be honest, I just want to go to like some of the southern states in the US. I want to go to Tennessee, where Nashville is. I want to go to California really bad. I want to go to Texas because I think it sounds cool. I've been to Florida, but I only went to Disneyland, so I think I'd like to see the rest of Florida. Well, you know what? I'm not fussy. I just want to go anywhere.
There you go. There you go. So let's one more time. Let's go ahead and plug on March 12th. We have Memphis The Malibu, and folks, well, obviously, if you're listening to this, at the start of this podcast, you will hear a brief 10-second clip of Memphis To Malibu, and as you're listening to this, we will play a different 10-second clip of Memphis to Malibu at the end of this podcast to get you guys going. March 12th, Abigail Hannah, Memphis to Malibu, on all streaming platforms. Currently, right now, you can pre-save on iTunes, Apple Music, and on Spotify. Those links are on Abigail Hannah's Instagram account and High Plateau Productions Instagram account as well. And Abigail, we are over the moon to be working with you, and
I'm going to be working with you.
Yeah, and you know, I've told you this several times of how proud I am of just the growth in the last 3 months and the confidence and everything too. And it really, it's really going to pay off for you in the long run. And we are excited about hearing Memphis to Malibu. And folks, as just a bit of a teaser, if you've liked Daisies, if you liked I Dare You, and you're going to love Memphis to Malibu, you need to stick around because there's a few songs in the works that are absolutely different, vibey, emotional, that we are currently working on. And like Abigail said, is that we are hoping in second quarter of 2021 that there could be an EP and there could be something different about Daisies, and we'll leave it at that. So Abigail, thank you for all your time and everything. We really appreciate it today, and thank you.
Thank you.
This is David Fernandez from High Plateau Productions, and you've been listening to Beyond the Plateau, a High Plateau Productions podcast. Thank you, everybody, and be safe out there, and we'll see you. Take care.